In case of otherwise intractable hiccups, the muscle relaxation caused by orgasm is a surefire treatment.
This is Exploring Unusual Sex, the podcast about odd stuff that helps understanding everyday matters. Our host today, from Milan, Italy, is author, journalist and personal coach Ayzad.
Welcome! In this episode we talk about Godzilla porn, spontaneous sex changes, unconvenient trees, teachers everywhere, giantesses and much more. Let's get starting, and the first topic is sex dolls. What is your ideal partner like? If you answered breathing, I've got a surprise for you. This factor is losing importance for more and more people, and not because of necrophilia epidemics. Fact is, sex dolls are now enjoying their highest success ever, for very interesting reasons. But let's take it from the start. Almost. As a matter of fact, archaeology cannot help much. Museums preserve artificial phalluses in stone and other rigid materials dating back to 28,000 years ago, but there is no surviving female equivalent which were necessarily built with softer and more perishable materials. To find any trace of that kind of items, we have to move on to the 17th century and to its proud ocean-faring sailors who had to make do with what was available to relax during their months-long travels. According to some tales, one solution was, for instance, to breed lots of earthworms in a jar and use it as a flashlight, but this is probably just a legend. What certainly existed were the so-called Dutch wives, that is, a sort of braided bamboos ventilated hugging pillows used in the awfully humid climate of the Indian Ocean to avoid sleeping on sweat-drenched surfaces. Someone ingeniously added a pocket to fit a weft fabric roll in, thus having something to penetrate. For many years, it was believed that the first actual sex doll had been the Nazi project Borghild, a foldable rubber puppet that soldiers could have carried into their backpacks to avoid mating with non-Aryan races and supposedly diseased prostitutes. We recently learned how that story was probably just a prank though, so we can happily jump to the 1970s and the arrival of inflatable dolls. If you ever saw one, you know they don't look especially human and that only a really desperate or drunk person could find them arousing. This is why there have been many attempts to improve them throughout the years, for example filling them with foam rubber or water, which also offered the added advantage of warming them. Someone made the proverbial lemonade of that, forsaking realism to create inflatable sheep, dogs and even aliens to play with. In Japan, where a parallel trend of fabric sex dolls had flourished, they simplified things instead until they invented the takimakura, abstract-shaped pillows with or without holes, but featuring life-size prints of porn stars or anime characters.
Let me interrupt you just a sec for an important reminder. The episode notes contain all the links to the topics mentioned in the podcast, and if you want to dig deeper, you will find hundreds of further articles on the Ayzad.com website.
The true revolution with sex dolls arrived in 1996 when advanced manufacturing techniques and materials became available. The Californian sculptor Matt McCullen had the genius idea of printing anatomically perfect silicone bodies around articulated steel skeletons that allowed better posability and robustness. His real dolls immediately cornered the market, inspiring knockoffs that are sometimes even better than the original, with realistic, exaggerated or fantasy features, of course in male variants too. Again in Japan, someone even set out to build dolls resembling little girls, conceived for those harboring pedophile tendencies. Leaving any outrage aside, some maintain they may be viable safety valves to avoid abuses on actual children, and others fears they may serve as a sort of dry test for real-life violence. There is no definite answer yet. What we know for sure, however, is that since 2010 or so, the sales of realistic dolls, costing up to thousands of euros, increased 100-fold. In fact, they are playmates so desirable that someone even opened full-blown brothels worked by fake girls only. But what caused all of this? Once again, the answer is the internet. For a minority of people, the habit of interacting mostly online feeded on their persisting relational anxiety, which of course doesn't apply with a mannequin. For far more persons, however, the issue is completely different. As we saw a few episodes ago with galmatophilia, sometimes you have such high aesthetic requirements that you end up able to find them only in idealized simulacra, and you cannot get aroused by flesh and blood partners anymore. Still, what was just a very rare condition until a few years ago spread along with broadband porn, which dramatically shortened the serotonin cycle of arousal, search for stimulation, satisfaction. If this once happened over hours, today it is normal for it to resolve in a matter of seconds, also due to the immense availability of online videos featuring every imaginable sort of content. The result? You can get addicted to this new rhythm and find real partners inadequate, since they have their own times, small imperfections and needs. The solution, so to speak, is to buy a perfectly customized doll. As brilliantly told in the movie Lars and the Real Girl, it is not to be excluded that there may even be positive sides to it, but they surely are very rare. And things will get even more complicated in the future. Irrespective of all of the announcements you periodically see in the media, it will take decades still before we see true working, safe and affordable erotic androids. But they will come, exacerbating the real doll's problems and creating new issues. Picking just one, what the ethics will be of sexually using and potentially abusing a robot with a next-to-human artificial intelligence. Think about it the next time you see a Barbie doll, a pillow, or a mannequin.
The Sexual Explorers Manifesto is a global initiative to spread a healthier and more positive approach to sexuality. You can easily find it with an online search, but in the meantime, let's take a closer look at one of its 15 items. Today's one says:
We are all sex educators. Each one of us is in their own way a sexual explorer, but we all also have the ethical duty to behave as educators to help others find their happiness. Recirculating knowledge means contributing to everyone's wellness. The important thing is to only share verified information you are completely certain about. You can at least offer your personal experience, spreading the notion that there is nothing bad in talking openly about something we all very often think about anyway.
This is your moment. In every episode, we pick one question among those sent to our expert at podcast@ayzad.com. So let's get writing to get an answer like this.
After so many episodes of exploring unusual sex, it is clear from your messages that you are trying to make things difficult for me. Captain Harlot sure tried hard anyway. His question was, is it possible to spontaneously change gender without undergoing surgical treatments? No matter how absurd it sounds, what you described maybe isn't terribly frequent, but it is an actual occurring phenomenon. It usually concerns relatively simple organisms like oysters, certain corals, stone bases, clownfish, and a few other species you can find in the frozen food section of your supermarket, not to mention chicken under a series of very specific conditions. Among humans, it is impossible instead, although there is one very close exception. Fact is, the Dominican Republic shows a significant incidence of a genetic mutation inhibiting the production of 5-alpha-reductase, an enzyme required for testosterone metabolization. Babies presenting this condition are born intersexual, meaning with traits from both genders and apparently female genitals. Come puberty, however, the testosterone level increases and around age 12 it causes the penis to develop and the testicles to descend, turning them into full-blown males. That phenomenon is common enough to have earned a specific entry in the local dictionary called Guevedose, which literally translates as penis at 12. After solving this doubt too, I want to remind everyone that sex should always be a pleasure, not a problem, even when it is uncommon. However, if you are experiencing issues, I can help you as a personal coach to discover together the ideal strategy to win back your happiness in this field. You can get in touch through my website ayzad.com, spelled Ayzad, and saying you are a listener of this podcast will earn you a 20% discount on the first session.
This episode is almost over, but we still have time to read one entry from XXX, the Dictionary of Unusual Sex, available in online bookstores everywhere, but in Italian only for the moment.
Today's entry is macroherpetophilia, an imaginary paraphilia invented by author Warren Ellis for its 2007 novel Crooked Little Bean and subsequently turned into an online urban legend. It would consist of reaching orgasm by admiring the giant reptiles from Japanese kaiju movies, especially in those scenes where they stomp around and destroy entire towns. This would happen in particular during special edit shows secretly organized by circles even providing claw-shaped gloves to masturbate with, which would be just laughable if macrophilia wasn't an actual thing. That is the erotic attraction toward fantasy scenarios with colossal-sized protagonists, usually female, or where the subject sees themselves as shrunk down in size. The typical development concerned various cruelty inflicted by the giantess onto the subject or general destruction reminding of a Godzilla movie. Some enthusiasts take this fantasy very seriously. Certain Japanese porn publishers realized videos using the same techniques developed for kids series like Ultraman to show in detail the enormous feat of a giantess trampling on the city, and one documentary shows a Tokyo couple who built a miniature reproduction of their home surroundings exclusively to admire how the wife, who is taller than average, destroys the neighborhood on a regular basis. And that really was it. Before leaving you with one last unusual sex fact, I want to thank you for listening and invite you to follow me on my social networks and above all on my website ayzad.com, which is also the ideal place to sign up for my newsletter. That way you'll get straight in your inbox new articles, reviews, invitations to events, and the notification for new podcast episodes which you can listen to and comment pretty much everywhere, like iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Spreaker, and so on. If you liked exploring unusual sex, I would also like to invite you to fill the Tell Me About You form you can find linked in the episode notes, so you will help me make the next episodes even better and closer to your tastes. Finally, you can also lend a hand by telling your friends about this podcast and writing about it on your social networks. Thanks, and before moving on to the next episode, here's the fact I promised you. After its rapid worldwide adoption for its beauty, the Callery pear tree is going out of fashion because its blooming flowers smell strongly of human sperm.